Hello, this is Gerald Sudi, Abnormal Psychology with Dr. Jackson, Psych 5013 for our August 12th assignment, 7 to 10 minute introduction regarding a specific mental disorder, the history and the key diagnostic criteria. I'm going to be talking about the bipolar disorder by two poles. It's a major health problem, significant morbidity and high mortality, often as a result. Both sexes are affected equally, and it's really become somewhat of a chronic illness. According to the DSM-5 definition, the bipolar 1 disorder has one manic episode with or without psychotic features. The manic episode may have been preceded by hypomanic or major depressive episodes. The bipolar 2 disorder has one major depressive episode accompanied by at least one hypomanic episode, no prior manic episode. So the difference is the manic episode creates the bipolar 1. The bipolar 2 has only the hypomanic disorder or episode. There are many psychotic features that go along. I'll touch on some of those, but this illness includes severe, lifelong group of disorders. Most experience it before the age of 25. There are extreme moods, lows of depression, highs of mania, which is constant excitement, involvement, companionship. Could be enthusiastic for all kinds of things, to seek out new friends, new interests. This person can be socially dominating, overwhelming, excessive. They talk and move quickly, as I'm doing right now. Never enough time to do what they do. They can be loud. They can be clever and flashy and flamboyant. They'll take risks, somewhat showy. They can exercise poor judgment as a result, causing them to operate too fast to consider all the pitfalls. This large self-esteem and low coherence causes them to be out of touch with reality at times. They can be low on logic and very inconsistent. Both manic and hypomanic are self-confident. They can have a sense of well-being. They can have a decreased need for sleep and sometimes sleep very little. They're usually talkative. They can have increased activity or agitation, racing thoughts, distractibility, poor decision-making, causing other activities that are unhealthy. They can appear to be upbeat, jumpy, or wired, not having success thinking or concentrating, may have a background of ADHD, and it can lead to suicide planning or attempting. There's depression and mood swings, anxiety, irritability, fatigue, difficulty sleeping, inability to focus and concentrate, as already said, which can result socially in illnesses, marital problems, erratic occupational histories, financial troubles, and recurrent legal issues. Now, what are some of the causes? It could be biological, physical changes in the brain, genetics that come from, close relatives like a sibling or a parent. Often there's high stress in these lives, and alcohol and drug abuse. How do we prevent some of these things, and how do we help these people? Well, we want to teach and help them to understand, to pay attention to the warning signs in their lives, triggers of falling into depression, or triggers that create mania. I've had many experiences with those of people at work. They need to avoid drugs and alcohol and take their medications as directed. Now, as I think about the history, before we go on to diagnose this a little more, of the Greeks and Romans back in the first century, they used terms like mania and melancholia. They learned lithium salts in baths helped calm the manic tendencies and lifted the spirits of the depressed. So early in those ancient times, people learned these things. The problem was they were often executed for this disorder, and it was touted as demon possession. It was even acknowledged by Aristotle in his early writings. But as we move closer to our day, in the 17th century, a man by the name of Robert Burton, he treated this disorder with music and dance. In 1851, he had the first documented diagnosis of what we now call bipolar disorder. In that same century, a man by the name of Bonnet published a book as he drew on the experiences of some 3,000 autopsies and linked mania and melancholy, bringing the two disorders into the same diagnosis. A French psychiatrist by the name of Jean-Pierre Faure in 1851 published an article calling it circular insanity. Mental disorder cycled through both extremes. Circular insanity. Depression, mania. Depression, mania. A German psychiatrist by the name of, if I'm spelling it properly, saying it properly, Krepelin, may have been the first person to study seriously the mental disorder. He broke away from Freud in the 20th century. But the classifications we use today began in the 1950s and now, more recently in the DSM-5, list 4 major mood disorders: the manic episode, the major depressive episode, the hypomanic episode, and the mixed episodes. So today we treat it with medication and different therapies, and there's no single hypothesis that unifies all of the different considerations on why this disease is active. There's genetic considerations, biochemical considerations, pharmacological considerations, anatomical and sleep data on bipolar disorder. Serotonin hypotheses have also been proposed. Neuroimaging studies have been done, circadian rhythm, desynchronization, cognitive processing. All of these things have never been all unified into one key area. Well, let's talk a little bit about some diagnostic specifics between the anxious distress with 2 or more of these symptoms: feeling keyed up or tense, feeling unusually restless, which create this mood episode, difficulty concentrating because of worry, fear that something awful may happen, even feeling that an individual might lose control. And the mixed features that go along with the bipolar is the manic or hypomanic episodes with mixed features include prominent dysphoria or depressed mood, diminished interest or pleasure in activities, psychomotor retardation, fatigue or loss of energy, feelings of worthlessness or excessive and inappropriate guilt, and recurrent thoughts of death. So you can see there's this cycling of recurrent activities. Now, when we come around to diagnose the bipolar disorder, we must meet a certain criteria for a manic episode, and this episode of mania may be preceded and followed by hypomania or another major depressive episode. So a manic episode would be a period of abnormally and persistently elevated, expansive or irritable mood, and abnormally or persistently increased goal-directed activity or energy, lasting at least 1 week and present most of the day, nearly every day or any duration if hospitalization is necessary. During the period of mood disturbance and increased energy or activity, 3 or more of the following symptoms, 4 if the mood is only irritability, are present to a significant degree. So let's listen to 3 or more, and if it's irritability, there are 4. Inflated self-esteem or grandiosity, decreased need for sleep, feels rested after only 3 hours of sleep, more talkative than usual, and pressure to keep talking, flight of ideas or subjective experiences that thoughts are racing, distractibility because the attention is too easily drawn away to unimportant or irrelevant stimuli as reported or observed, increase in goal-directed activity, either socially, at work, school, sexually, or psychomotor. It could be purposelessness, no goal-directed activity. Excessive involvement in activities that have a high potential for painful consequences, such as engaging in unrestrained sprees, sexual indiscretions, or foolish business investments. And this mood disturbance sufficiently is severe to cause impairment or social or occupational functioning, necessitating hospitalization to prevent harm to self or others. So that's my diagnosis for bipolar 1, bipolar 2, we already had discussed. Thank you very much for your time.